So, I wanted to talk about, I went to the Atlanta protests on Friday night. And I wanted to tell you guys about my experience because I feel like there's a lot of things that people aren't understanding about why did the protest happen the way it happened, why did it become a violent protest, and what was going on, and what was the energy like. So my best friend and I went down to the courthouse, not the courthouse, but the Capitol at 4 o'clock on Friday, and the energy was beautiful. The people were beautiful. People were together. It was all about, standing in solidarity together. I have lots of really great photographs. And it was sad because we all know why we're there. We're there because week after week, police are murdering people, especially black people, and nothing is really being done about it. Sometimes they get prosecuted, but like with George Floyd, instead of getting first-degree murder, he got third-degree murder. And the maximum charge for that, the maximum sentence for that, if he's convicted, is 25 years. So he'll be out on good behavior in about, 11 years. Because that's how the prison system works, guys. It's not really about justice. It's about privatized prison profiting, which I would love to talk about another time. But so we came down there and we were a little disappointed because we weren't at the Capitol for very long before the crowd started moving and we started marching, which we knew because the flyer said that was what was going to happen. That was the plan, to go back to Centennial Olympic Park once reaching the Capitol. So we had already missed the first half of the march. And we knew that going in. But I did run into a few people who were angry because they were like, why are we not staying here at the Capitol? This is where our legislators work. This is where we need to be. So, and they're absolutely right. Like that, I agree. I feel like we should have stayed there longer as well. But I'm not sure about this, I could be wrong, but I think that maybe what happened is that maybe this was a last minute protest because we are so energized. These feelings are very, very fresh. Like this is an immediate reaction to what we have been seeing the last few weeks with the death of Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and now George Floyd. And the thing is this is the kind of thing that keeps happening. So I just want more people to really put themselves in black people's shoes, because there is systemic racism, there is systemic oppression. The system is not set up for black people. It never has been. The problems in the 60s still exist today. They were never actually corrected. They were just swept under the rug. And I'm going to get to that in a little bit when I talk about the 1965 Law Administration Enforcement Act. But yeah, so, like in government class in college, you learn that in order, because protests in the past have become violent or because they have disrupted traffic, we don't want to disrupt traffic because we want to make sure that people can still get to their jobs, get home to their families, ambulance can still cross the road, right? So protests that do disrupt traffic typically have to get a permit to do so through the city. They have to get permission to do so. And that's the same if you stand in front of a building and protest. So I think that possibly, I do not know whether a permit was actually gained or received or allowed. I don't know. But I feel like, the energy is that we really don't care at this point. At this point, you're not going to silence us anymore. The government is not going to say, no, you can't do this. we're telling you, no, you cannot do this. You cannot kill us anymore. You cannot kill our brothers and our sisters and our cousins and our friends and our family. You cannot do this anymore. Something has got to change, and you are not going to silence us anymore. We are not going to be quiet. We are not going to be complacent. We are not going to be complicit. You are going to see us, and you are going to hear us. And that's what these protests are about. So whether or not we had a permit to do this, it really doesn't matter, because you're going to start hearing us now, and you're going to get our demands, and you're going to do something, or this is going to keep happening. So we went with the rest of the crowd, and we kept walking back to Centennial Olympic Park, which is also in the direction of the CNN building, and the Omni Hotel. And we came across this statue, and a lot of people had stopped to gather there, and it was really relieving, because I thought, oh God, we're going to be stopping cars, like people are going to be mad because they're going to be getting home. But actually, pretty much, I didn't see any car that wasn't there for the protest. The cars that were there, that were stopped, they had posters of their own. They were there in support of the protest as well. And so this was the part where we kind of jumped in on some chanting. And yesterday morning when I woke up, actually, I felt really good waking up, knowing that I did go to the protest on Friday, and I did participate, and I was there, and I was present. But I came home, and I watched some of the videos from when we were at the statue, and it really gave me cold chills listening. One of the chants that we did is like, all I want to say is they don't really care about us. And that one hits home really hard for me, because I don't feel like the police care. I feel like, I'm not stupid. I know there are good cops and bad cops. I know there are people out there on the force who do sincerely care. There are good cops. But when your whole squad when you have a bad egg in the squad and you're not doing something about that bad egg, if you're not speaking up, if there isn't something being changed, then your whole squad is bad, even if there's a good egg. That bad egg is rotting everybody else. So, and I really think like police work is cyclic. If you go to a really rural place, which most of Georgia is rural, I'm sorry, Atlanta is not the same as Georgia. We are a city, we have lots of diversity, we have people from all over, but that is not true for the rest of Georgia, and that is why Georgia is a red state, because most of Georgia is rural, and most of Georgia is impoverished, and a lot of Georgians are not like college educated, they haven't traveled. There's a lot of people who are in their bubble, and they have no desire to go outside of their bubble. And so when you are in your bubble like that, and I'm from a small town, so I know this, you have no desire to learn about others or learn how other places do things, because you're stuck in how you do things, and that's it. That's all you know. That's all you want to know. You don't want to know more. And that's a problem. But that's also true for what is going on inside of police forces and where the problem is rooted. And that's what we've got to do. We've got to get to the root of the problem. And the root of the problem is traditions in police forces which have been handed down. Things that we don't really think about that are ingrained in our mind, like, oh, hey, look at how that person looks. Is he big? Is he large? Is he darker? How does that make you feel? It's these snap responses that we have, that police force also have. And I know because I've experienced it with my partner being in the car with me, and the police treat him differently than they treat me. They talk to him differently than they treat me. And I've seen it with other police, with other friends, and it's widespread, and there is a serious problem to be addressed. And I think the only way this is going to be addressed is if we really change how police are trained. Hairdressers have more of a training period, have to take more courses over hourly courses than a police officer does. And police officers are expected to respond to traffic issues. They're expected to respond to domestic abuse issues. They're expected to respond to mental illness issues, to suicide issues, to people who are angry issues, people who are committing burglaries issues. They're expected to respond to all of this, but they aren't trained specifically for each one. You know, technically speaking, if you wanted a police officer to serve and protect a domestic abuse victim, you would think that he would need at least a year of psychology courses to understand what is really going on and what the red flags are and what to look for and how to understand and how to approach the situation, especially without violence. The same thing for mental illness and suicide calls. There was Georgia Tech just 2 years ago, a student who was mentally ill, who was suicidal. The police shot and killed him because they didn't know how to handle that situation. And you can't expect them to handle that situation if they aren't trained to do so. So really the root of the problem, in my opinion, is they have no training on how to do this. We've got to train them better, okay? They've got to be more educated on psychology, and they've got to be educated about how cyclic issues and cyclic racism affects police officers. We've got to educate them about instances of police brutality and why it is wrong. And we've got to be able to root out the officers who don't believe it was wrong. We've got to be able to give them psych evaluations. They should have to take at least a year of some sort of like Mai Tai class or whatever. I don't care. But some sort of class that is going to teach them how to disarm somebody non-violently, without force, without lethal force. You should be able to disarm someone without lethal force. You should be able to do that as a police officer, because your job is to serve and protect, not to shoot and kill. That is not your job as a police officer. And you know, I've met people, just a little off track, I've met people who told me, lots of men have told me, they wanted to join the military because they want to kill. They want to have a legal excuse to kill. And I am suspect that that is also why some men, and may possibly women, join police force. Because they think that they've got a gun, they can legally kill if they need to, and that's exciting to them. And we've got to root those people out. They have no business being on the forces. So this is where we're at the statue, and we're talking about all this. Now I am a social justice advocate. I have gone to many protests, and typically what happens at a protest who has received a license and a permit to do what they're doing that day, typically we have a speaker, or we have several speakers. So typically what would have happened if once we reached the statue, typically we would have had a speaker who spoke to us. Just 2 weeks ago, my best friend and I, who was with me today, on Friday, we went to a protest in Brunswick, and we were there for over an hour, and every 5 to 10 minutes was a new speaker. And there were speakers who could come from organizations in Atlanta and Decatur and come down to Brunswick to speak and to give their voice of solidarity and their assurance that we are in this fight together and we will not permit this to continue to happen. And typically that's what we would have done at the statue, but because I think this was last minute, like we just needed to get out here and make ourselves heard. So there really wasn't a speaker, but there was a group of young people who were speaking. And I don't think it was planned. I think they were just speaking from their heart, and it was important that we were there and we were a part of that and we were hearing them. And not only that, but there was a 73-year-old man who was there in a red shirt and overalls and a hat, and he spoke to us too. And he spoke to us about having to have done this in the 60s, and having to have done this earlier in times in his life, and still having to fight this fight today. So clearly the problems were never resolved. They were swept under the rug. And we stayed here at the statue, and made ourselves heard. And there were police, but they were overall just letting us do what we needed to do. It didn't feel like the police wanted to stop us. It almost in some ways felt like the police understood and perhaps had the same feelings. APD, there are lots of black men and women in APD because it is Atlanta. So I do think there were probably a lot of police officers Friday who did feel the way we felt as well. And probably that's why they were letting us be in the street and be everywhere. But there was at one point a rumor, and I have no idea if it was true, but we were told by some other ralliers that there was tear gas up ahead. And that our people were being tear gassed and we needed to go help them. And I actually caught that on video, someone saying that. So we all ran towards the CNN and the Omni Hotel. And when we got there, there were definitely some scuffles. There were people who had come to the protest who were angry. And that's what I want people to understand, is not everyone who came with the same intention on Friday. Some of us came to be peaceful. Some of us came to be quiet. Some of us came to be loud. Some of us came because we are angry. Some of us came because we had a family member or a friend who had been slain by the police and we wanted to speak out. Some of us came because we were angry and we wanted to riot. Some of us came to be violent. Not everyone did that, but there were people present who did. There were thousands of people who came to Atlanta. Not all of these people were from Atlanta or live in Atlanta, but there were thousands of people with different backgrounds, different perspectives, different feelings, different pain, different traumas. And the thing about life, you guys, is we all have trauma. Especially childhood trauma. All of us have some sort of trauma. And my personal belief is that that is what life is all about, is at some point, whether you're 15, 30, 40, whether you're 80 years old, at some point, your purpose in life is to be introspective and recognize that trauma and correct that trauma. Correct your behaviors that are inappropriate, that are toxic, that are harmful to others. And become a better person by learning from your trauma. And so you've got to understand that not everybody is at the same level in life or at the same place in life. So the people who come on Friday who were angry and who want to riot and who want to be violent towards the police because the police were violent towards them or towards their people, they're not. You've got to put yourself in their shoes and understand that this is their pain, this is their experience, this is their truth, and you have no right to silence their truth. No right. So we came out on Friday, every single one of us, from all of our different backgrounds and perspectives, we all came out together in solidarity to voice our truths. And I think Atlanta heard us. But what you're not going to do is you're not going to sit here and talk badly about these people who want to riot or who want to break buildings. You're not going to do that because you're not going to sit here and put buildings above black lives. Buildings are not more important than black lives. Black lives and all lives, but black lives are more important than buildings. And you can rebuild a building. You cannot take back a life. There are insurance on all of those buildings. You can't get somebody's life back. And several of those buildings in other cities spoke out and said they're in solidarity. CNN spoke out and said, we're not a victim here. They feel how they feel. CNN was basically saying, this is their truth, let them speak their truth. Riots are the language of the unheard. There is not going to be peace until there is justice. It's really that simple. If the cities don't want their buildings destroyed, if they don't want their walls written on or spray painted, then I suggest you do something different. I suggest you reform your police forces. I suggest you fire and reprimand without pay the people who don't take care and serve and protect, because there are many. There are many. I recommend you to the cities, I recommend you to really do some deep introspective searching and find out who is promoting the cyclic, toxic behavior in police forces, and get rid of them without pay. And stop going easy on our brothers in blue. They're murderers. They deserve to get penalized for murdering and taking lives. They don't deserve pay. They don't deserve an easy way out. They deserve a harsh penalty. They need to be an example to others that this is not going to fly anymore. We won't permit it. And we'll keep fucking shit up if you don't get the message. It's really that simple. It really is. And people want to act like, oh, riots are so bad. What do you think, how do you think gay right activists got through? How do you think women's suffrage got through? How do you think the Berlin Wall finally was torn down? How do you think the Boston Tea Party went down? Riots is the most American patriotic thing to do, because when you're not listening to us, we're going to make you listen. So do something different, do something to help us, change what you're doing, fix the problem, and then you'll have peace. And try to put yourself in other people's perspective, because every single person at that protest had a purpose. Everyone serves a purpose. Everyone serves a purpose in life, and everyone serves a purpose at a protest. There are people who come demanding change and wanting change, but not knowing how to gain the change that they want. They're the demanders. They're the people that are shouting. They're the people who are pleading for change, but don't know how. So you have the leaders and the organizers who are, and the speakers who are speaking and making the demands and verbalizing the demands. And so they are backed up by the demanders. So they each have a purpose, and they're both helping each other, and they're both lifting each other up. And then what do the people who are destroying things and rioting and causing, breaking glass windows, what's their purpose? Their purpose is to visually convey to you what they are feeling inside themselves. The internal rage that you have caused as an act of negligence, as an act of staying silent, as an act of protecting your brothers in blue, as an act of letting this go on for far too long, because this is the tip of the iceberg, people. We are rioting only because of the instances which have been caught on camera. But there are thousands of lives which were brutally taken or shot down, which were never caught on camera and which were swept under the rug. So there is a lot of national rage and anger and confusion and hurt. And you're going to hear that and see that with all of these fires and the glass breaking and things being thrown and the destruction. You don't get to have peace until we have justice. I don't know how many other ways you need me to say it, but you need to understand that every person there had a purpose. And no, I don't believe we should be stealing from these places, but the fact of the matter is, no justice, no peace. I don't believe we should be throwing bricks or water bottles or anything like that. We should not be causing harm into others. And I want to say that 73-year-old man, he eventually made his way to the CNN sign, and he was telling us to fight, but not to fight physically, to fight by standing still. And there were people who were throwing water bottles, and whatever the media told you, that is all they were throwing. I was there and I was in the middle of it. And there were people throwing water bottles, and we all told them to stop throwing water bottles. And when we told them to stop, they stopped. Who were the people that were throwing water bottles? The people throwing water bottles were truly, honestly, the younger ones. The younger ones who are angry, who have not learned yet how to deal with their emotions, the ones who want to act out. So us older ones, we're talking to them during the protest, during the rally, once we got to the CNN building, and we're telling them to stop throwing water bottles. And they listened. We have to keep telling them repeatedly because they keep coming in, they keep flooding, they keep learning, they keep getting... All of this is happening at once. There's a lot of emotion going on at once. There's a lot of different people together at once with a lot of different backgrounds, and not everybody's at the same place, but we are helping them calm down so that we can stand there peacefully and do as the old man told us to do, and to stand still, and they will not hurt us, they will not touch us, and we will be heard. And that is what we did. I even saw there was a white girl, I think she was probably like 16. She wanted to go up to a police officer and put her fist just right here, just stand in front of his face, right? Just like this. The officer was getting upset, you know, he probably is a little scared, whatever. But truthfully, she was not doing anything. She was standing in front of him. And I watched a black woman, an older black woman, come over there and wrap her arms around her and talk to her. And tell her, you know, I know this is what you want to say. I know this is how you feel. This is how we're going to handle this. We're going to do this together. And just comforting her and letting her know it's going to be okay. And we're here together and we're doing this together. And that's what it's all about, okay? Because there's going to be people that are angry and who aren't processing this in the best ways. But there's going to be people right behind them that come in and hug them and help them through it. And that's what we were doing the whole time. We were at the CNN sign for over 5 hours. We stood there peacefully for over 5 hours. On 2 or 3 different occasions, we knelt. Just like Colin Kaepernick, we knelt in front of the police with our fists raised. So let them know we're there peacefully. And every time somebody wanted to throw a bottle, we made them stop. We were there for each other. I do want to say, how many more minutes is on here? I do want to say there was a man with a microphone, and I think he was a white man, and he was telling people things that were scaring them, that was inciting fear. And I do think there are some people who weren't there with sincere intentions. And I think we need to be cautious of the people who might be on other people's payroll, who might be there to incite violence. That is true too, that those were not our people. Now, I don't know this man, I don't know his intentions, but I do know he was telling us over and over, okay, this is it, they're going to arrest us in a few minutes. Here's the number to call for the lawyers. They're going to get the zip ties out. They're going to throw us on the ground. They're going to do this. This man was causing us to fear. I was afraid. And then everybody's saying white people to the front. You know, I really feel like for once I got a sliver of a glimpse of an idea of what it might be like to be black, because I was afraid to go to the front. I was afraid to be in the face of the police officers. And I feel like that must be like what being black is like every single day. To step outside and fear what's going to happen to you or who you're going to be approached by. But this man with the megaphone inciting all this fear, this woman called him out and told him, stop doing this to us. You're making people afraid. People are running when you speak. And when you run at a protest, you lose the pack. And you need to be together as a pack, because there is power in numbers. They can't get all of us. They're not going to try if we're together. But if you run, you disrupt it. And this man was causing us to disrupt our peaceful protest by inciting all this fear. And this woman told him to stop. Like, you need to comfort us. You need to say peaceful things that make us feel better about what's going on. And she was absolutely right. But this was my experience. And eventually we were all afraid, because there were rumors of tear gas happening and there were rumors of snipers on the roofs. So we did eventually fall back and start going down the street to the four-way. You've got to understand, this is not all of Atlanta. This was a very small part of one street, just a small area. And we did fall back, and when it became nighttime, that's when the violence started happening. But you know, there's a reason that people are angry. And I hope you guys really see that. No justice, no peace.